There we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker podcast, brought to you by our newest sponsor, Eyesight Drone Services. I am Knox City famous Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver. How you doing, Andy?
That's right. That's right, Jeff.
You having a shit day today, aren't you?
Most of them are pretty rough.
Remember when I told you to go ahead and become a doctor one day when you was about 16?
Yep.
Yep, you could be a gynecologist. Life would be rosy every day. With us today, from the greenhead capital of the world, Fort Cobb, Oklahoma.
Fort Cobb, baby.
Mr. Dallas Barber. Dallas, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. How are y'all?
What's the weather like there in Fort Cobb? It's raining there a lot?
We've been getting some water. Last handful of days has been a lot like you guys, severe weather, warnings, all that fun stuff. So having to keep our head on a swivel, but a little over an inch in the last 24 hours or so. So a blessing for sure.
We're up at over 3 inches here.
That was yesterday.
Yeah.
3.1 yesterday.
We're living a whole lot better than y'all up there.
And rain's coming.
Yeah.
Western Oklahoma's real dry right now, from what I understand.
The Panhandle got over an inch and a half, over the last 24 hours, which is kind of a rare occurrence for them to have more rain than anywhere else in the state. So up there around Guyman and all that kind of stuff got a good swath of rain, which is good for everybody up there.
I guess we need to tell people, too, that you're the state biologist for the big game biologist, correct?
Yeah. So I handle all of our deer, elk, and antelope across the state.
How's the elk population holding up?
It's good, man. Ever growing. A lot like our deer herds. Just all wildlife in general are going to be dependent on timely rainfall. And luckily here over the last handful of years, we've had just that. So habitat conditions have been really good. Fawning and calving rates have been really good. So the herd is ever growing.
It's crazy because a lot of people don't realize Oklahoma is a really cool state. Y'all are very diverse from southeast Oklahoma. You got Bigfoot, and y'all got a Bigfoot season now, correct?
Yeah. So we had one of our legislators from that district wanted to. Basically, it was done to promote tourism to the area, and there's kind of a big cult following for Bigfoot, like we talked about last time. So he wanted to have a official Bigfoot season, and that went over like a turd in a wheel.
The first time somebody comes bringing one in to get it tagged, it's going to be a different story then.
Yeah, heck, if I was over 6'4" and had a beard, you couldn't catch me south of I-40 or east of 69.
So you got a Bigfoot season now in Oklahoma. That separates Oklahoma and Arkansas. It's just not electricity now. It's having an actual Bigfoot season.
Absolutely.
You got antelope in the Panhandle area.
Yeah, we're one of the most ecologically diverse states in the country, just right behind California. So in one day you can go see a pronghorn antelope, a mule deer, an elk, and an alligator. So we've got a little bit of everything.
Now, where do y'all have alligators at, around Texoma?
So, the Red River Valley, basically everything east of Texoma, you wouldn't be surprised to see them, but really they're kind of concentrated that far southeast corner. So the Grassy Slough Wildlife Management Area down that way.
That surprises me, as cold as it gets over there still. But
yeah, it's kind of right on their kind of border of where they can make it. There were actually, during that big cold blast, there were pictures getting shared around by some news stations of a frozen over pond or slough with just alligator noses sticking up out of them. So they were trying to stay alive.
Brian Sullivan lives in Illinois, and he's got a pair of whistling ducks that are on his pond right now. And they're
yeah. Have you guys seen many down there?
We have had a few of them around here, but not very many. Now, I know Eastern Texas has a bunch.
We've got a couple groups here and there. we've got a couple groups here and there. There's a pretty local flock up around Cherokee, which is the Great Salt Plains Refuge area. And that's probably 20 birds there. And then just nickel and dime little flocks here and there that I'll hear about.
So are the ones at Cherokee, are they there every year, or is this the first year they've been there?
They're getting to be pretty regular.
That's nuts. Because we've never, ever killed one during hunting season. Well, we've never killed one here ever, but we've never seen one during hunting season here.
We only really see them spring and fall.
Yeah, that's here too.
I mean, spring and summer. I mean, they'll push out before any sort of season opens up.
So does Bigfoot, does that fall under your category of things?
I don't know where it would fall if it were to have actually gone through. I think they'd actually changed it from hunting to trapping. So there was a bounty, all kind. I mean, this is like a legit thing that our government sat down and listened to at the the session that they just got done with. So it was comical and concerning and embarrassing.
Well, they are politicians, and they're not known to be real smart anyways.
How close was this to getting passed?
I don't think it was close.
Who put it up?
It was one of the representatives for that region down there.
Was it as like a joke, or was the guy being serious?
Tourism.
No, I think he was serious. I think he was serious about it. And I mean, like I had said with Jeff there, he had done it more as kind of a tourism push just to get people down there. I mean, that place is exploding in that part of the state with tourism. So he kind of wanted to throw a little gas on the fire. And I think he accomplished his goal of getting some attention down that way.
What I don't understand with the Bigfoot dive, we've had two Bigfoot people on here. One of them was a cousin breeder. The other one was really a nice guy. He just a little touched maybe. But
yeah,
those people live in a different universe than most of us do. And they either doing a breeding call. Now, do you really want some big Bigfoot with a hard-on coming after you if you do get one called in? Hell no.
I can think of a lot of other things I'd rather have chasing me around.
So how are you going to satisfy that fella if you get him called in? And then the second is, you just said they want to trap one. How the fuck are you going to get one off a trap?
A jab pole and some heavy sedatives.
You think, by God, if you can get him off the pole, he can get himself off of the damn thing. I mean, they got hands and shit.
Think so.
But anyways, that whole Bigfoot thing is hilarious. But Oklahoma is definitely taking it to a different level with the Bigfoot.
Yep, we're pretty unfortunately famous.
Have you been to that area looking for a Bigfoot? Like, have you ever seen anything in that area?
No. That Jeff said that those people live in their own little world, and I am the farthest thing from that world. I mean, obviously, I've had to go down there and work, but never have gone looking for a Bigfoot.
Those areas have a high density of bears too, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's our highest bear density for sure down, those bottom three kind of southeast counties. So LaFleur, McCurtain County down that way. Lots of bears.
Now, are you in charge of the bears also?
No. So we've got some regional staff that are actually in charge of all that research that we're doing down there. So, God, we've been collaring bears with GPS units for 20-something years now. We've got a pile of data.
How far will they travel
on them? That's really a great question that I don't know the full answer to. But, as they disperse from that area, I mean, we've got bears that have genetically originated from that kind of localized population that are, all the way up just south of Tulsa. So they're moving out.
And that's a big bear, too, a big black bear, correct? They're 400 or 500 pounds, some of them?
Yeah. Yeah, they grow pretty big.
See, that's what people are getting confused with Bigfoots.
So 20 years, where did the bears originally come from? Was there just a small number of bears that were in this area of Oklahoma, or did they come up from Arkansas?
So they came over from Arkansas. They were, if I remember right, Arkansas originally did a reintroduction project quite a while ago, and that population has just over time exploded. They're a very good species when it comes to utilizing available habitat. So as more and more habitat became available to them, they just keep on expanding.
Jeez. And now you said they're all the way up almost to what? I mean, Tulsa.
Yeah, almost to Tulsa. So we've expanded our bear zone here for hunting over the last, let's see, that was 2 years ago. I want to say that happened. So it was just a small little area, and now it's about a third of the state.
Has it crossed I-35?
Maybe 25%.
Have any bears sighted the west of 35?
So it has not crossed I-35.
Have there been
yet.
any sightings?
Yeah, it has not crossed I-35 yet.
Any sightings
again,
west
Jeff?
of 35 yet?
Not that I'm aware of, but I mean, a lot of that stuff usually will stay, game warden level, and probably get a call for those southeast bear biologists. We'll hear about it, but nothing that I would know about.
It's kind of like the tornado chasing area. You never want to cross 35 because it's too many damn trees. You can't see shit back in there.
It gets woolly in a hurry.
Very fast.
That's why Bigfoot lives there.
That's right. Okay, I'm gonna touch base. I watched the Louisiana game warden show the other day. They've got Lone Star Law and they've got the Louisiana law. And one of the things that they had on there, a guy shot a deer in Arkansas and brung it across, and he got pulled over in Louisiana on a bordering county, and they made him take it back to Arkansas. What are the rules on that with your state in Oklahoma?
So that's something that we refer to as a Carcass Import regulation. That's really done as a preventative measure for chronic wasting disease. So more states than not these days have got some sort of carcass import regulations. In Oklahoma, you're not allowed to bring a full carcass from out of state unless it meets a certain kind of criteria. So quartered meat, you can bring that in. If you want to bring a head in from a deer, that's got to be cleaned of all tissue, finished taxidermy products. There's kind of a list of things that you have to do to legally bring that carcass into the state. And that doesn't just apply to deer. It applies to any cervid, so members of the deer family. So that would be things like whitetail, mule deer, elk, caribou, moose, anything in that deer family.
Well, my question is like, if he quartered it, they said it was okay in Louisiana. But if it came back whole like that, it wasn't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
How does a dead animal... I don't know much about chronic waste disease, but a dead animal being cleaned, how would a wild animal get it from that dead deer that's in that guy's back of his truck?
So when it comes to chronic wasting disease, we're going to, I guess, dive off into some real nerdy stuff that I don't know how many people are going to love it. But chronic wasting disease is a prion disease. So essentially what that is, a misfolded protein. It's not caused by a virus. It's not caused by bacteria, anything like that, stuff that a lot of people are familiar with. So that prion concentrates itself in the central nervous system. So all of those ways that you can bring that back in are, to the point where that has been removed. That central nervous system has been removed. So the spine, the head, the neck, all that stuff has been left in the area that it was, originating from. So you're just trying to limit the spread of those prions, because those prions, they don't, bleach doesn't kill them, hot water doesn't kill them, anything like that. So, you bring your deer home and, you clean it up at the shed and throw it on the back 40. Well, now you've got an infected carcass laying out on your landscape where it can be spread to other deer.
So how would it be spread to other deer? Like a coyote theoretically would eat on it, and then like how's it going to spread?
Yes, I mean, so there's a couple different ways. I mean, deer are obviously curious animals. So anytime that they come up and were to lick on that, put their nose on that, that would be one method of transfer. Some lab studies have actually showed plant uptake of those prions. So they can bind to soil really, really well and live in that soil for decades. So if it gets in the soil, plants can actually uptake that prion in the root and push it out into the leaves. Another deer comes by, eats those plants, and it just keeps rolling and rolling.
So it's almost impossible to get rid of it once you get it then.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely true, Jeff. Whenever people hear about it, it doesn't really strike much of a bell, but whenever you start to really read into how this thing works, it becomes scary in a hurry. There's only really been one state that has gotten rid of it, New York. Let's see, 2009 or 10, it was a while ago. They had one or two positive animals show up, and they have been meticulously testing and have not had it come back. But once it's on the landscape, it's there. So your job as a biologist and a wildlife manager is to mitigate the spread of that as best you can.
Has there ever been a case of an animal getting it and then being able to get rid of it? Or is it a death sentence for one of them?
No. It is 100% of the time fatal.
That's a bad deal. We had a deer not far from here, about 50 miles, that a guy called me, and I called the game warden. It was just a deer just standing there looking at him, a buck in the yard, and it wouldn't go away, wouldn't do nothing. And the game warden went and looked at it, and I think they shipped it off to see if it did have it, and I don't think it did. Does Texas have any active cases of chronic wasting disease?
Yeah, so there's 3 kind of hot spots there in Texas. And you're going to have to forgive me on town names. I don't recall too terribly well most of them, but there's one down kind of south around San Antonio where all the high fence ranches are. And then way out in the tip of that kind of El Paso area. And then another one up around Dalhart.
When you say a hot zone, is that multiple?
More times than not, yes, it's referring to multiple positive tests.
How did that all start? Just a genetic mutation, like you said, it's a folded protein. So how did the first case of chronic wasting begin?
We really don't. Yeah, unfortunately, we really don't know a whole lot about the disease. It's fairly new. So it originated over kind of the Colorado-Wyoming border area back in the 60s, and has now spread to over 26 states across the country. So it can be spontaneous, mutation, like you're saying. But we've kind of got it narrowed down to where a lot of it is carcass transport, both dead and live animals.
Is it affecting the cattle business, or can they get chronic wasting disease also?
No. So you've heard of mad cow disease, right? So that is the bovine form of chronic wasting disease. So transmissible spongiform encephalopathy. That's a big mouthful, but we just call it a TSC. It's in the same family as mad cow. So mad cow in cattle, chronic wasting disease in the deer family, same thing.
Now, could this potentially go on? I mean, what else could this spread to? Could it get into dogs if a dog?
So the biggest concern is breaking the species barrier into humans, which is a terrifying thought. I mean, it would ruin hunting forever. I mean, everything you've ever known about hunting deer would be down the drain. It's never been proven to be possible. As far as living proof in a human being, obviously, when they do crazy stuff in laboratories, they can get it to work. There's been some studies that were done that are still yet to be peer reviewed in the scientific community that they had gotten some monkeys that were humanized to contract it. But, it would have been the equivalent to eating like 100 pounds of infected venison every day for 3 years. So it's pretty far-fetched.
It's like getting high off of a module of hemp compared to marijuana. It's the same basic, concept.
Say that again, Jeff.
You could take a whole module of hemp, and you're not going to get anything out of it because it doesn't have enough TCL or TCH or whatever it is. It's in the marijuana, but it's the same basic. You couldn't put enough of it into your body to affect you. Probably
you'd have to eat too much venison for it to
ever affect you. Yes. Okay,
Yep.
I'll talk to you a couple other things now, since you're the smartest guy on the podcast today.
Well,
so. Odd ads. Y'all have odd ads in certain areas in Oklahoma. Will there ever be a season on something like that?
I really don't know. With them not being an official game species of Oklahoma, it's going to be a lot like the hog hunting deal where, we might require a hunting license just because you are, in the act of hunting. But as far as limits or seasons or anything like that, currently we don't have anything for them. So if you got them, you're more than welcome to.
So you don't have to buy a hunting license to shoot an odd ad in Oklahoma?
he said you don't have to buy a hunting license to shoot an odd ad in Oklahoma.
Well, it kind of depends on time of year. So if it's deer rifle season, you would need to have a hunting license, or if you're on a WMA hunting, you'd have to have a hunting license. But To my knowledge, I don't think that you do. I might get in trouble for saying that. But
Well, I asked.
it's not in my wheelhouse.
I asked you because I think that you're correct on that, which doesn't make sense to me because if you guide in Oklahoma, you have to have a license even though you're not shooting a gun. So, so if a guy's hunting an aoudad, he's still hunting. I would think he had to have a license, but I think you are correct on that. The reason I'm asked, your elk population, those elk are introduced, and now they've got a hunting season on them, right? The elk aren't native to Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I mean those were. Well, they were native to Oklahoma.
Well, back in the day, a long time
That's
ago.
why they were reintroduced.
Right.
So a lot of those yeah, I mean we're talking back in the 1800s.
Yes.
But with aoudad, they're not native to North America. Those are a sheep, Barbary sheep, going to be from somewhere off in La La Land, but not North America or the U.S.
So is that just like the feral pig? Somebody brought them over here, and then they got out and just have done well in the wild. Aoudad.
Yeah, I mean same kind of concept.
I think they're a Persian goat. I think they're like from Albakistan or one of them places like that. I don't know exactly, but
one of the stands.
Yeah,
we'll just cover it with they're a stand.
If you live over there, it's El Fuckistan probably because it's probably not a good place to be. I make you nervous, don't I, Dallas?
Did you hear him?
Can you hear me?
North Africa.
I can barely hear you.
I said,
Jeff.
I think I make you nervous when I say stuff sometimes. You're a state man, good guy, good job, the mayor of Fort Cobb, and you're worried about what I'm going to say. So
you're not going to let me live it down,
no,
are you, Jeff?
the reason why I was asking about the aoudad is that the aoudad is not a native. It's native to North Africa. Is that right?
North
Andy?
Africa. Yes,
and,
Jeff.
And y'all have it like around in Hobart where we hunt, there's aoudads, and I'm sure there's some other places around the Wichita Mountains that have them. And I was wondering if you see in the future where they'll start having, where the state will actually put a season on them because the elk were reintroduced to the Wichita Mountains. Was that the first place in Oklahoma y'all introduced them?
Yeah, so I mean the first place in Oklahoma that we saw aoudads was going to be right up along our Texas border. So that kind of Greer County, Mangum area, if you know where that's at, it's going to be kind of right around that way. As far as the season goes, I mean, I it's hard to tell. I mean, we work for the people. So if the people want an aoudad season, I'm sure that our commission will make it happen. So to all of our 15 listeners, if you want an aoudad season,
I think
make sure you shoot someone an email.
I think you'd have a better shot at getting a Bigfoot season than an aoudad season.
Oh, it could be. I just was wondering because they seem to be growing and thriving in the area that we're at. And I think it's great to see the states bring back different species that was native or not native to a place and they thrive. Just like the elk. The elk were there years ago and now anywhere around the Wichita Mountains, you're liable to see an elk somewhere.
I think you can put a fucking goat just about anywhere and it's going to do okay.
And that's the hard part with them, Andy. I mean, they're such a generalist that they're going to compete with any of the native species that we have. So, as a deer biologist, I don't necessarily want to see a whole bunch of aoudad out there just because they're going to be competing with our native deer and elk.
And that makes lots of sense.
Well, that's true, too. I guarantee you it was some fucking Texas high fence guy, put some aoudad on there, they got out, and now they're bleeding over in Oklahoma.
Well,
You're probably right.
There's a ton of aoudads like around the Paladura Canyon that got.
Well, I mean, the rules in Texas are there are no rules when it comes to wildlife.
Basically.
So you guys kind of do whatever you want.
Did you see that tiger thing that was down in Houston? I guess the tiger got out.
Yes.
What the hell?
That dude that had a tiger at gunpoint in his neighborhood.
Yes.
He's
I'd have shot that.
Don't
son
shoot
of a
my
bitch.
fucking tiger.
I'd have shot it and get it mounted. Can I get that mounted, please, sir?
All you got to say, man, it was coming right for me.
Now
you're good to go.
Now,
Green light.
Y'all in Oklahoma, y'all can't make fun of nothing about tigers.
Y'all
got the Tiger King. So
yeah, it's the king, the best. Yeah. We're the best at tiger stuff.
He was almost the governor, remember?
Yeah, he ran for president.
Well, he was closer to being governor of Oklahoma than he was president. He would be a better president than one we have now. I'm telling you right now.
Well, and another thing.
No comment.
Yeah.
And another thing,
No
I'm gonna
comment.
try to let you off the hook here. He was pissed off, evidently, that Trump didn't pardon him. He had a fucking limo and all sorts of shit outside of his jail, and Trump didn't pardon him on the last minute.
He got real sideways about it, and now he's claiming that he's going to die in prison because he has
Cancer.
Leukemia or something. I don't know what kind of cancer it was, but he's claiming it. He's pulling the cancer card.
You're desperate then. If that's your last card.
I'm going to honestly tell you, that's one of my favorite series ever on Netflix. I could not turn it off.
Not only was it hella entertaining, but it happened at the perfect time when everybody was going on quarantine.
Yes.
So you had nothing to do but burn 12 hours of your life that you'll never get back to learn a little bit about Oklahoma culture.
I'm not sure that Tiger Kings does well if COVID doesn't take off like it did and just lock everybody down.
100% agree.
And this is it, and it took on a life of its own. I'm not sure it does well if COVID's not around.
Netflix
100% agree.
was one of the beneficiaries of being locked down last March and April for us in Texas.
Because now people realize they can't live without it. So it's like they got it during lockdown, and they're like, oh, fuck, I can't live without this now. I tell you, the show that I'm watching is Bloodline. Love Bloodline.
I haven't watched it. I've heard a lot of good stuff
it's good.
about
It's
it.
3 seasons. 3 seasons.
Yeah, the missus and I are catching up on Dexter. We saw they're dropping a new season of it, and we burned through that when we were in college. So we're catching back up on it again. So
I've
watching.
never seen Dexter. Is that about a killer?
It is on Prime.
I've been an Amazon Prime guy. That's my new shows I've been watching lately. Have you watched Red Oaks on Prime? Have you seen it yet?
No,
it's set in the 80s, so it had a lot to do with me because it reminded me of being in the 80s. Yeah, it was all right. It was entertaining. It filled some hours.
I missed it by a year.
The Outer Banks. They did you watch that last year on Netflix?
That's a great one.
It's coming back.
Oh yes.
This summer they said.
I saw that.
We're fucking pumped. Me and my wife.
Did you think that chick was hot on there?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which one?
The chick that was the rich girl. The rich girl.
She was okay. I mean, I wouldn't
she
kick
was
her out
hot.
of bed for eating oats, but not as hot as some of the girls I've seen.
She was a hottie. Dallas is not allowed to talk about this kind of stuff. You can tell.
Dallas is nodding on camera.
He's nodding on camera. Yes, we'll go with that. So
there you go. Not nonverbal confirmation.
Let's talk duck hunting now. Did you have a good year this year?
Okay.
Nope. Nobody did.
Man, it was. I mean, I have some pretty decent hunting over here west of me a little ways where I could go in there pretty much and guarantee that kind of 3-4 man mixed bag stuff, and it just wasn't there this year. Weather, obviously, I mean, we're beating a dead horse. We've talked about this for 2 years running now. It's just the weather hasn't been there. Late season was pretty decent. I had a great January. But it was just staring at pintails all day long. So I'd shoot a bird and then I'd watch the sun come up for the rest of the morning.
Do you think the duck numbers are off? I do.
Yes and no. A lot of that, the basically Fish and Wildlife Service and Canadian Wildlife Service has had to cancel, spring surveys.
Two years now.
The breeding surveys. So, I mean, bird numbers are, who knows what they're at right now. And especially with the way that Canada and the Dakotas are looking as far as hurting for water, it's going to be an interesting year. That's for sure.
We didn't see the widgeons that we've normally seen. The last 2 years, we haven't seen the widgeons that we always seen.
I have not. We're right in the same belt for widgeons, man. I mean, it's a guarantee. If you go set up a goose spread in the field, a wheat field, you're going to bang out a handful of widgeon, if not a big limit of widgeon. And we have not seen near the widgeon this year.
We didn't either. And then we talked to, what's the gentleman's name? The biologist guy from California?
Brian.
Talked to him about the pintails because all we see is drakes. Well, we found out now that pintails, 70% of the birds are drakes or something. Well, that's all we see is drakes.
And the way that they migrate is what he said.
Right. So we're seeing all we see is pintail drakes, and like you said, you're one and done. And then we haven't seen the ducks, and I think the duck numbers are off somewhere. Now, what's concerning me now is North and South Dakota are bone dry, I'm hearing.
Yes. I mean, I actually saw a couple pictures from our waterfowl biologist today of some sloughs this year versus last year. And I mean, last year, awesome water. This year, absolutely bone dry. So there's definitely going to be, I mean, they're having a lot of nesting success, but nesting success doesn't really mean a whole lot when those little ones aren't growing
Right.
up.
Do you know how far into Canada that drought extends into? Is it most of Canada?
I
It
don't.
looks like it goes all to Quill Lake all the way. It's from what I saw on the map. Now I don't know that. For
Yeah,
sure.
I mean it's that drought map is fairly accurate. So Jeff, whatever you saw is probably right about where it's at.
Yeah, and that'll be all the way to Quill Lake almost. It's a horrible deal, and it's going to affect us. How do you feel like the Canada border being open or being closed affected the hunting? Do you think it made a big factor, or was it just weather?
I mean, when it's December and Montana's still wide open water, I don't really think it matters.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, obviously there's going to be people bumping birds around, but when there's no people, I mean, hell, the people in Canada, they don't waterfowl hunt too terribly much compared to us in the States. So there just weren't a whole lot of people pushing them around. And if it's not going to freeze, they don't have to go anywhere, man.
Now, you're a native to Oklahoma, correct? Grew up there and raised and hunted up there.
Yes,
what
sir.
What do you think? Oklahoma's been bombarded with outfitters in the last 10 years.
Yes, it has.
Is it making it harder and harder for the regular guy there? I know it has to be, but is it?
Yeah, I mean the blue collar guy is getting leased out from underneath pretty much on a regular basis now. There's a couple large scale outfitters that are in the central part of the state that are have got some pretty deep pockets, and they've leased up stuff that I've traditionally hunted. So I can only imagine what it's doing to some of those people that are a little more local.
I had a guy hunt with us last year, and he was freaking pissed. And he was not happy about outfitters, but he come and hunted with us. I think, well, hell, we're an outfitter too. But he was pissed because Oklahoma are leasing up stuff.
It's getting bad. I mean, it's getting to the point where I'm sure here in the next handful of years we'll probably see some hunter decline just because we're limiting, access for people, and there's only so much public ground people can hunt. So they're going to go to that first, and when they realize it's a circus with people, they're just going to say that, to hell with this.
Outside of maybe Missouri, I would say Oklahoma has got as good a quality public hunting as anywhere in the country does.
We've got a lot of opportunity here. I mean, the department manages, over 1 million acres of public land with a lot of water. I mean, especially if you're up around the Tulsa area, you're within an hour and a half of, hundreds of thousands of acres of water to hunt.
So I got the map here. I'm not gonna be able to pull it up, but so yeah, basically all the way over to Winnipeg, and it doesn't go very high. It probably goes up to Regina. It's an extreme, yeah, right. It's an extreme drought, and then as you make your way up to Saskatoon, it kind of moderate drought. So that's a long way up there. Dry fucking weather.
Dry Regina.
Yeah, you don't want that.
That's bad news bears, man.
You. That is not a good situation. You're gonna get fucking road rash that way.
We've got to really watch our language because there's a lot of ladies that listen to this because we're doing a photo deal with the women in the outdoors, and we've had a ton of women post pictures on the podcast page for winning a tumbler.
Well, if you got a dry Regina, take care of it, ladies.
Sorry about you.
It's not appealing. And it needs to be a slick, dry Regina.
Okay, let's get off the Reginas.
So anyways, yeah,
we'll get off the Regina.
Anyways, you don't want a woolly dry Regina.
There's 100,000 acres around Tulsa. The Grand Lake and all them areas like that, do those hold lots of ducks?
Parts of them do. Grand Lake does not have a lot of what people would call waterfowl habitat. It's a lot of steep banked, kind of rock ledged lake. But where the Neosho River and the Spring River come in, there can be some pretty good waterfowling up that way. The farther you go south along that Arkansas and Grand River Valley, you'll start to see quite a bit more what would be traditional waterfowl habitat available.
Now, Call Lake, a lot of waterfowl opportunities there.
Yes, we were just there last week, actually, doing some habitat eval on the airboat. I posted a cool picture of that. Kaw Lake traditionally was, a powerhouse of a waterfowl factory there for us. We used to be able to aerial seed millet on that whole river channel and river mouth, and it was tremendous the number of birds you would see up there. But the Corps of Engineers kind of reset what they considered to be normal pool for that lake, so we lost a lot of our mud flats that we would traditionally aerial seed millet onto. So that's kind of a thing of the past. Obviously, those are still exposed mud flats, so we've got natural forages available, but with that, we've got to have right water levels for water to get on that food.
Now, y'all do the same thing at Lake Texoma, don't you?
Yeah. Whenever we can, as far as the water, obviously that's our biggest hindering factor there. If we get a big rain event before and it covers that mud up, we've got nowhere to put seed. And then you're also, it's a gamble regardless when it comes to those big river systems, because we're, flying that on, and then we got to pray it doesn't rain for 2 months. We did it last year, but all that millet ended up in Louisiana, I'm afraid. You
know what, though? That's a hell of a deal that Oklahoma does, because the first time I heard about that, I said, you got to be shitting me. We can't get the state of Texas to do a damn thing, and the state of Oklahoma, home of the Tiger King, and they can, by God, go spray millet out of airplanes to build food plots for ducks.
If you haven't gotten to see that in action, it's a badass deal. It's just a big giant. It looks like a spray plane, essentially, if you've seen like an aerial sprayer plane, but it's just got a giant feeder on the bottom of it. It looks like a big ass corn feeder, and we'll fill up that plane with a couple 1,000 pounds of millet, and he'll go do his thing. Those pilots are crazy people.
And it has to be dry for 2 months. It can't rain.
Well, we can get some rain, but it's as long as we don't get something where it brings water, up and over those seedlings. Millet can stand some water once it gets to a certain height, but until it gets to that height, it can't be flooded out.
So what do you do? Like
July or August?
July 1st? When's the best time to do millet?
Yeah, that kind of first couple weeks of July, you've got a 60-day, 90-day maturation on that. So whenever you throw it in July, you're hoping it's up and ready by October.
Or you could throw it mid-June and be ready for teal season.
Well, yeah, I guess you could.
And it's however you want to line it up. You're just going to be fighting some weather.
How many different places does the state of Oklahoma do that in?
So now it's really just about Texoma. It used to be Texoma and Kaw, but that kind of got nipped in the bud by that the Corps deal, resetting the normal pool for that lake. So that's about the only place we were able to do it anymore.
So whenever you see that the pintails are everywhere, do you send your waterfowl biologist an email like, hey, maybe you should look at this? Respectfully.
Say that one more time.
Do you, whenever you see how many pintails that you've got in your area, do you ever send your waterfowl biologist an email, who's in the next office over, and be like, hey, bud, respectfully, you should look at this?
I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that, that's one of the things he complains about is, man, all these people keep crawling on my ass about pintails, and he's not the only one. So it's definitely something that Central Flyway Council gets an earful about, and hopefully in the future we'll get some things changed. I'm interested to see how Nebraska's little project goes with their kind of 2-stage or 2-phase licensing system.
The 3-splash. I think that's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got mixed emotions. I think there should be a limit on how many years that you can opt into that. Obviously, I think 3 years maximum, I think is what I said. 2 or 3 years, I think you should be able to do it. But I think after that, you should start learning to identify ducks. But, what if you're an old guy that just likes hunting that, can make out the bird, but, like Ron. I don't know if Ron could have identified birds on the wing like he could have 30 years ago. But he could, well, he wasn't a very good shot.
Yeah, I see both sides of it for sure.
I think we need to do everything we can to get young hunters in the game. I don't know what it is, but we've got to figure out how to get little kids from 6 years up involved in hunting. interested in it. I don't know what the answer is. For
Well, you also have a problem of getting people to remain a hunter.
I mean, I think
Hunter retention should be a big deal too, in my mind.
We have a lot of dead time here today. Dallas, can you hear us? Hello?
Is he frozen?
No,
Very.
I can see.
barely, guys.
I don't know what's going on with ours. So we've never had this system. We had a bad storm last night.
Let me see if it's on my end.
Is that better?
You look like a whole different person. You change shirts and shit.
We decided, I think it might be my internet, so I just hopped out here in the pickup.
Yeah,
People on YouTube are going to be so fucking confused.
We're like, what the fuck what is he doing?
Did we have a set change?
Did you change shirts, or is that the same color shirt you had on a Mingo?
Same one, my
It looks
man.
completely
That would have
fucking,
been funnier than hell.
it looks
though.
fucking different. I'm like, God damn, he went and changed fucking clothes. You're like, Michelle, I can't take you anywhere without having to change fucking clothes.
You got it.
All right, so
Sorry about that.
No, it's not. It's probably our internet. I mean, we had this bad storm last night. There's no telling what's going on right now.
your biologist, is it just one guy that sets y'all's seasons, or do y'all have a committee?
As far as waterfowl seasons go? Yeah, so, I mean, obviously the Central Flyway Council kind of gives you parameters with which you can operate.
Right.
So you can only, you can run for, 74 days. You can start here, you can end here, you can do whatever you want as far as splits and stuff go. So at our level, at a programs biologist level, we, kind of push up the chain recommendations for season dates, all that stuff. And then it goes through a committee process and is finally approved by our commission. That's how a lot of states operate.
So back to the 3 splash rule of Nebraska, because that's where we were at before we had your wardrobe change. I think it's a good thing to do everything that we can to get new hunters, but we also have to do something for hunter retention, and I don't know what that is. I don't know. I don't even know where to start on trying to get more guys to stay in hunting longer.
It's one of the biggest things we're facing as outdoorsmen right now. I mean, so there's a big movement called the R3 movement within the outdoor industry. So recruitment, reactivation, and retention. And, you kind of hit it on the head there with how do we retain hunters? And I think that it's a question that we're fighting to answer pretty much on a daily basis. We can get people in the door as best we can, but how do we keep them in the door? It's something that we're trying to figure out every single day.
I think that hunting is like baseball, and to the fact that youth baseball has become a rich kid's sport. That's the kids that play youth baseball. Unless they live in a small town and they've got just little leaguer out there, but the kids that are serious about baseball are on travel teams. That's an expensive hobby. Hunting is an expensive hobby. You can't just go down and buy a hunt license for $2 like you used to, and they get you for a stamp for $1. Shit, a federal stamp's almost $30. Time you get a license, it's going to cost you $100 just to go participate. Well, $100 to a wealthy guy like Andy's not a big deal, but $100
that's right.
to someone making $7 an hour, that's fucking, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those deals where I don't think that social media helps us at all in this aspect. If you don't kill 80 birds on your hunt, it's a complete waste of time. Or at least that's what, the social media folks are making it look out to be. So, somebody goes out for the first time with a couple buddies and they shoot 2 or 3 birds, they look at it as a failure and they're saying, man, I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it's something that we as a collaborative need to kind of think about the bigger picture when it comes to some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know, like getting a new hunter, that makes a lot. I can think of 10 different things to get somebody in the door. The 3 splash rule, like, hey, if you're worried about shooting the wrong duck, opt for the 3 splash rule. Done. Okay, cool. But getting somebody to buy a hunting license, getting somebody to cross over from a casual hunter to a lifetime hunter, I don't know what to do. I mean, I really don't.
It's money. The finances is playing a big part in a lot of this.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't give shit away.
And, no, you can't. And another aspect that's getting the problem is the availability of places to hunt.
Right.
We live in a small town.
Definitely.
And the average guy who lives in my small town right here, if he wanted to go hunting, to go shoot a deer, He's going to have to dig in his pocket and get a lease somewhere because everything's leased up just about. He's not going to be able to ask Joe Bob, the farmer down the road, hey, do you mind if I go out and let my boy shoot a buck? Man, I'm sorry, I've got my stuff leased already. So,
yep. Especially in your guys' shoes in Texas, where public land just isn't a big thing down that way.
No.
So you're seeing that. You're seeing the repercussions of that in Oklahoma. The southern half of the state, what used to be hunted by, Billy Joe Lunch Bucket from just down the road's getting leased up by somebody out of Dallas.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys from Texas that do go to Oklahoma now to lease stuff. And now,
it's a cheap non-resident license, and that DFW money goes a long way in rural Oklahoma.
And now I've got guys in Wichita Falls that I'm friends with that have got leases in eastern Oklahoma because they want to shoot a bear, and they've got them on their deer leases now. So that's played a big part into it too.
I mean, when you're paying $300 to shoot a bear as a non-resident, people are going to jump on that.
Yes, that's exactly right.
What's the limit on bear?
Probably one a year, I guess.
One?
I think it's one.
And the people that I know that have leases there, they all kill a bear every year, or whoever gets tagged for it buys them.
Yeah, I mean they're plentiful down that way. I mean, honestly, the biggest limiting factor to killing one is the clock. I mean, it's only a 17-day season, and it happens traditionally right when that acorn drop happens. So all those donut barrels you've been filling up, they kind of quit eating on those, and they go straight to acorns. So you're racing the clock to get one killed.
Is the turkey numbers that dire in your neck of in southern Oklahoma as what they're saying it is on Facebook?
Yes,
it is.
Is it the eye worm?
No, I don't think so. I mean, does it play a factor in it? Yeah. I think really, it's kind of a perfect storm, Jeff. We've got, really bad weather as far as hatching and nesting and poult rearing. Big hailstorms are hell on turkeys, and we've had a lot of them here over the last handful of years. Destruction of habitat or lack thereof is getting to be an issue, where, we've got non-existent landowners that cedars are swallowing up traditional turkey roosts. We've got farmers that are planting from fence line to fence line. There's just a lot of stuff, a lot of woody encroachment. Turkeys do not like to not be able to see. So whenever you see a pasture that's getting choked out by, things like sumac and cedar trees, they just quit using it. So it makes a really easy ambush spot for, a bobcat or coyote or whatever. And I mean, that's another factor going to be nest predation and just overall turkey predation.
What about the wild hogs? They're tough on them too.
They can as a nest predator, yeah, from what I understand.
And y'all's hog population's really growing in west Oklahoma now.
There's one or two around. Yeah. That's for damn sure.
So what are they thinking about doing to kind of stop this tailspin that the turkeys are in? Is it one bird, or what are they going to do? Shorten the limit season?
Well, I mean, so there's been proposed. A lot of our folks that are Oklahoma license holders, I'm sure, saw the survey that was sent out from us, the wildlife department, kind of asking some questions about how they feel about it. And there are some proposals that'll be going up for this June commission meeting where we're considering going to a two-bird season bag limit, and then moving the season back about 2 weeks, or 10 days. So instead of going April 6th to May 6th, we'd be going April 16th to May 16th.
What's the thinking there? Have more hens bred by the time you start hunting on the toms?
Exactly.
Right. And then, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see what the numbers would do going, because it's 3 up, is it 3 or 4 in Oklahoma?
3.
It's 3. See, it's 4 here.
3, but 1 per county.
So you got to travel a little bit if you're going to shoot all 3.
Yep. So you can kill 3 birds as a total bag limit, but each county has a 1-bird bag limit.
That's an interesting way. So, but the current proposal would be 2. It'd be interesting to see what the numbers would say. Like, okay, if we shoot 2, this is when we can start seeing the upswing.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's an adaptive management approach. I mean, you're always having to tinker and kind of stay on your toes when it comes to wildlife management as a whole, not just turkeys, but you kind of make a change and see what the trend says and just go with that. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. There's a lot of research fixing to get kicked off here on turkeys in the next couple of years. So hopefully we can get this thing figured out and get her turned around. I mean, we can't fight Mother Nature. So, you know, that's one thing that's completely out of our control, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't see near the turkeys, boy. 5 years ago, where we hunt at in Oklahoma, you'd see 70, 80 in a flock in the wintertime. And last year, I can't think of one time I seen more than 4 or 5 birds together.
Yep, it's getting bad, man. That's for sure.
So what are some of the research things that they're thinking about doing? Can you tell us, or is it top secret?
Well, I mean, I really don't know. They just kind of tell us, you know, there's been a new head cheese up at Oklahoma State as far as in their wildlife research department, and we sent out a bunch of proposals to them, or requests for proposals on certain topics, and turkeys were one of them. So hopefully they'll pick up one of those and run with it.
It is crazy, though, like how delicate everything is. Like when you look at from the duck numbers to the deer to fucking bear to turkeys, like if you get off kilter just a little bit 1 year and it goes on to 2 years, 3 years, like you started out here in the middle, and then like by year 3, you're all the way over to one end to the other. And it's just crazy how one little factor can just totally wreck everything.
Our turkey numbers are down in North Texas too. Not like they are up there, but it's definitely changed.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's down because I mean, we've got close to the same weather as what Hobart does, where we hunt at in Oklahoma, but I think we're a lot wetter right now than they are.
How are your deer numbers looking for next year?
Good. I mean, the deer herd is as good as it's ever been. You know, we're coming off of a record harvest year for us. There's a deer behind just about every blade of grass, but not to the point where it's becoming an issue by any means. But it's a healthy deer herd, and our hunters are doing a good job at managing that.
And that's another thing. Like you want a bunch of deer running around, but if you get too many deer running around, then it puts a strain on the deer that you got. So it's just like it's a balance every single year.
And then you got pissed off farmers that are getting their wheat mowed down by deer. You're getting angry motorists that are hitting deer. I mean, so it's a yin and a yang, that's for sure.
What's the biggest deer that got killed this year? Do you know, in Oklahoma?
Oh gosh, there were multiple deer that were up around or over 200 inches.
That's crazy.
So
God Almighty.
It's a lot of bone, my man.
Free range.
That's a monster deer.
Yeah.
Have you seen one in the wild over 200?
One time.
They stand out, don't they?
And it wasn't in Oklahoma even.
Oh.
I saw one in Texas over 200 one time in the
yeah.
wild, and that bitch looked like a Hartford commercial.
Yep, they kind of stick out like a sore thumb whenever you get to see them.
I saw one with a 150-inch deer, and I was like, damn, that's a shooter right there, the 150-inch deer. And then the fucking tree next to him moved its head around. I was like, wow.
Just
yeah.
dorky.
Oh, yeah, it made that other one look like a runt.
Yeah, I mean, we're killing some good deer. Our hunters have really taken to heart kind of the letting young bucks grow and shooting does instead of little bucks. So things are looking bright and shiny in the deer world over here right now.
Yeah, that's what I never can. I'm not a big deer hunter, but I mean, if you've got a plot of land and you want to shoot a 170, and that's your ultimate goal with this plot of land, why are you gonna shoot all the 150s?
You can't.
I mean, why? I mean, shoot a doe instead.
If that's your goal, I mean but it also takes a lot of cojones to pass up a 150, man. I mean, a lot of people say, "He's standing in front of you." It's a tall task to go. I don't know. Maybe I'll wait.
Yeah, one more year, he'll be really nice. But I mean, I think you just got to figure out what your goal is as a landowner or as a deer hunter. Like, if you want to shoot a 170, you better let that motherfucking 150 walk and pray to God your neighbor doesn't have a itchy trigger finger.
Yeah, because that deer's not going to get past.
And I think that's the hardest part in our state, is small land holdings. The average land holding in Oklahoma is like maybe 40 acres. So when people call me and they say, "Hey, I want to grow big deer," I say, "Well, do your neighbors want to grow big deer?" Well, I don't know. Well, you probably need to talk with them and get on the same page as them so everybody can hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Because if you got one guy that all he wants to do is put 6 deer in his freezer, it's going to be a tall task to try to shoot a big deer.
What's the biggest ranch in Oklahoma? Do you know?
Are you talking contiguous or just land ownership
No,
in
contiguous.
general?
The lady, Ree Drummond, her husband, they own the most land in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one I know of is probably 75 or 80,000.
That's a spread.
I mean, that's a lot of freaking
That's
ground.
a lot of land. Is that would be in north?
And that's a lot.
Was that be in northern Oklahoma? Is that northern Oklahoma where that's at?
Northwest, yeah.
See, that's you said something a minute ago about the size of the ranches, because in Texas, someone owns 10,000 acres. That's not that uncommon down here. 15,000 acres.
That's just a drop in the bucket for people.
But when you get in
there.
Oklahoma, I don't know of a lot of places that I've got some farming friends of mine that farm a lot of land, but they don't farm one place like I do down here have.
No, it's a 160 here, a 340 here, a full section over here, and then you drive down the highway for a little while, and we got this over here and that over there. It's not all one big contiguous piece for the most part.
And that does make it hard to grow big deer when you're not dealing with 5, 10, 15,000 acre plots.
Yeah, when you're not in full control, it sure makes it hard. I mean, the average deer's home range is going to be about 1,000 acres. So if you have anything under that, you need to talk to your neighbors.
1,000 acres is what they'll go, huh?
On average.
And like where we are right here, if you've got 10,000 acres, you can usually shoot 10 trophy deer a year. Now, you may not shoot 10 150-inch deer, but you can have 10 shooters a year. If you take 5, you probably can shoot some 150s in a couple of years. But that's what it's going to take to grow a good herd of deer.
Age, genetics, and nutrition. That's the holy trinity.
So what do you do? So say you're wanting to and before we let you go, so say you're wanting to grow this big deer, and you see a 150, and you're like, okay, let's let him walk. Let him walk another year. You got the acres. You know he's going to be fine. If you see him next year and he's not any bigger, like he's maxed out, you can shoot him then?
There's a lot of factors that go into that, Andy. I mean, first you've got to determine, is that a mature deer? Bucks and deer in general will put all of their nutritional intake into skeletal development until they're 3.5. Mm-hmm. So after that, that's when they really start pumping up antler growth, because they've got all those additional nutrients to go into developing antler instead of developing skeletal mass, right? So the first thing would be determine, is that a mature buck? The second thing you're going to need to do is look at your farm and really kind of take a deep look into it as far as what kind of habitat am I providing? What kind of nutrients do I have available on my property? If it's good, I probably don't need to mess with it. And I'm not talking corn feeders. Those don't do much for antler development in any way, shape, or form. I'm talking natural forages that are available between February and September during that antler development period. Mm-hmm. So after that, another thing that people can do is shoot a bunch of does. It's rough on a buck when your buck to doe ratios are so screwed up that he's chasing tail for 4 months out of the year because there are so many does that are cycling in and out of estrus for so long. So it's it's another one of those deals where it's just a revolving door that, if you have too many does, he's going to rut really hard all the way through winter, and now he's trying to play catch up in the spring to build all that body mass back up, and then he starts over again, and it's just you're constantly going round and round, kind of an uphill battle.
So that's the problem with does. Is it's not that they take away resources from the buck necessarily. They're not taking away food or protein or any of that.
That is true.
It's the rut that they're in for so long.
Yeah, so both of those things are true, Andy. So not only are they one more mouth to feed, they are eating available nutrition for those bucks to put into their antlers. But yeah, the prolonged rut period is another one that definitely has a hamper on growing big deer.
So what's a good doe to buck ratio if you've got a big ranch?
You read Field and Stream and you read Sportsman's Magazine, and they tell you 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, and in a high fence situation, that's great, and that's obtainable because you're in full control of what's coming into the ecosystem. But On a free range piece of property, if you can get into that 5-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio, you're doing good things for yourself. There's just so much ingress and egress that happens in a natural setting without a high fence that there's no way you would have, full control over that.
Right.
And see, a lot of problems is you're at 10 to 12 to 1 on some of the places that that's the way it is.
Right.
And a lot of that are old timers, man. Back 60s, 70s, 80s, you didn't shoot does. You don't do that. Because you're at that, during that time, we're trying to grow our deer herd. And it's a totally different management story at that point. So all of those people that grew up with that are now landowners, are now, deep-pocketed people that are leasing up land, and they don't shoot any does. They'll have 25,000 acres, and they'll have 15 people on it, and they'll shoot $30, and then they go home.
Yep.
Right.
I know a lot of leases now a lot of leases are switching to making people shoot their does before they'll let them shoot a buck now. With some new education, they're coming in. You got to shoot 4 does before you can shoot a buck.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So people will implement, that's called an earn a buck system.
That's what it is. Well, that's the way it goes. Yeah. Well, Dallas, I appreciate you being on here, man. You're a good sport. I enjoy talking to you. You've still shot a blonde mallard. I've never got to shoot one of them. I'm jealous of you for that. So
I appreciate you guys having me on, man. Always fun talking to you.
I wish you'd just invite me up. Let me hunt that secret blind with you that you got there.
It's at Fort Cobb, Jeff.
Yeah.
Fort Cobb.
Come on, baby. Short trip.
We appreciate you, buddy. Take care of yourself up there, and have a good summer, all right?
Be good, guys.
Right, thank you. Bye.
Dallas Barber.
The mayor of Fort Cobb. Mm-hmm. Greenhead capital of the world. Great guy. Great guy.
I don't know what was going on with our audio this time.
Weird deal. I'm telling you, you've had a shitty day, and it's kind of come on over to us. Just kind of bled over.
Shitty day hasn't stopped either.
Are you glad your kids are out of school now because it's summertime for y'all?
It doesn't matter to me. My schedule doesn't change.
You'll have more time with your boys.
I don't know where.
What, you have a bunch more jobs lined up after this?
Jeff, I'm booked clear up to about 2024.
Well, good. That's good. That's good news, Andy. That's a good thing to have. There's a lot of people without jobs out there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking to employ someone as an assistant?
No.
No? You'd rather do it solo? So when you have shitty days, you have it by yourself?
I can just turn on the radio and... No, I'm not booked all the way up that way, but I am very, very...
You're busy as you want to be.
I'm busy to hunting season.
That's good. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody for listening. If you go to our private page at the Big Honker Podcast private page, I guess what you call it on Facebook, we're having a giveaway again. Check us out. I'd like to thank Dallas Barber for being on here again with us today. Check out our sponsors. Appreciate y'all. We'll be in St. Louis June 11th and 12th for the Dive Bomb Squad Fest. Come by in St. Louis and see us. God bless y'all and have a great week.
Check out all of our sponsors. Check out Stanfield Hunting Outfit. Bangtail Whiskey, Goose Creek Retrievers, Gundog Outdoors, Pacific Calls, Dive Bomb Industries, Boss Shot Shells, Dirty Duck Coffee, Lucky Duck, Looking Glass Duck Club, Blind Grass, and our new one, Eyesight Drone Services.